Welcome back. I'm Dr. Cheek and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what are some of the things that may be getting in the way or interfering with you being able to get what you need or what you're wanting out of therapy. Right now in this current environment, in this current times, we are feeling overwhelmed. We're feeling stressed. A lot of people are reaching out for therapy services and some people are not really feeling like they're getting what they need sometimes. And there are things that we can indirectly influence and not indirectly influence that might have the ability to improve our engagement, improve our outcomes as it relates to therapy. And some things we have control over and some things we may not have control over. But today we're going to talk about some of those things that may be getting in the way of you being able to get your needs met while in therapy or getting the things you want out of therapy. And I'm going to touch bases on maybe 4 of those things that could be happening that could be limiting your ability to get what you want out of therapy. And we're going to talk about some questions you can ask yourself if these 4 things are not within the realm of things that are interfering with your ability to feel like you are getting the things you need from therapy. So one thing that may be getting in the way of you being able to get what you want or need out of therapy is that the expectations that you have for therapy are not matching the effort that you're putting into the therapy itself. Now, therapy is not easy. I've said this before and I will keep reiterating that. Therapy is not easy. Therapy is not a quick fix. Therapy is the understanding of sometimes we have to get to the root of an issue in order to be able to resolve some of these things that are happening in your life. And in order for things to change, things have to change. So what this may look like is we want things around us to be different. We want things around us to change, but we're not willing to put in the necessary effort to get those things to change. We're not willing to follow what's being directed by the therapist to be able to get those things we're wanting out of the therapy sessions. We see the skills that are being discussed as not valid for what we're going through and not valid for what we're experiencing, and we're not willing to try. And because mental health is not a one size fits all, sometimes with therapy and most of the times with mental health, there are going to be things that are recommended that do not work. And there are going to be things that sound like they won't work, but until you actually try them, you never really know if they do work or not. So some people coming to therapy, not always willing to try something different because it pushes them beyond their comfort zone of things that they feel like are going to be helpful for them as far as being able to make effective or substantial changes in their lives. So the expectation is that I come to therapy and simply coming to therapy should be enough to make some changes in my life. The only effort I am going to make or I'm willing to make is actually just coming and participating and engaging in therapy. And although therapy is a good way to spend that 45 to 60 minutes, there are more minutes outside of therapy than there are inside of therapy. So if you're not doing anything outside of that therapy room to effect any change in your life, then chances are you may not feel like you're getting what you're needing out of therapy. Also, you may be going into therapy with the idea that I want to coach and not a therapist. Now, do we coach as therapists? Yes, we coach, we teach, we coach the skills that we're talking about. We coach using some of the strategies that we're talking about. We can do role play. We do a lot of things to get individuals prepared to use these skills outside of session to understand how these things might apply. This is how we coach. However, most of the time, most therapists aren't telling you what you need to do. So when we go in to see a coach, a life coach or a relationship coach, there's normally someone who is certified in certain areas or has a certain life experience that is going to tell you maybe some things you might want to try to do or things you should do in order to get to a specific space. Therapy is not that. Therapy is being able to understand what are the decisions and the experiences we've had thus far that has gotten us to this place. Now, how do we get to the place that we're wanting to be with the decisions and the strategies that we make on our own? Not with someone telling us how to get to that place, but with us using the core skills from therapy to be able to navigate those new and novel situations. So I don't need someone to help me navigate it. I've learned how to navigate the situation through other therapy skills. I can do problem solving. I can do perspective taking. I can start to kind of think about how I want to engage. I can think about how my past experiences are influencing the decision I want to make and how do I do the opposite of the decision I want to make because I want a different outcome. That is how therapy comes into play. Coaching is not therapy. Therapy is not coaching. You may not be getting what you're needing out of therapy because you were expecting, or you are expecting it to be a coaching session or a coaching situation, and that's not the case. Now, another thing that may be interfering with your ability to get your needs met is that your needs are not clearly defined. You go into therapy without a clear goal of what you're looking for from the therapy itself. Now, we're not asking you to come into therapy with a SMART goal. We're not asking you to have a formalized goal of, I want to work on this, this, and this, and this is the steps that I want to take to get this goal. That's not what's being asked. However, there is the foundation of needing to know what it is that you want to be different about life. What is it that you want to change? What is it that's problematic that needs some enhancements or some tweaking in order for you to feel like you're getting something out of these therapy services? Is it simply support? Do you feel like you need to learn how to be able to be open and honest and communicate with individuals, and you want to come to therapy first to do that in a safe environment before you start to extend yourself beyond the therapy room and start to share how you are experiencing and what you're thinking with others to get support outside of this confidential setting? Is it a matter of, I want to have a better relationship with my family, with my friends, with my coworkers? Is it, I want to be able to be more fiscally responsible? I want to be able to manage my finances better. What is the goal for coming to therapy? What are you wanting to get out of it? And if that's not clear, if you come into therapy with no defined goal, with no idea of what you're wanting to get out of it, then chances are you're not going to know if you're getting anything out of it because you went into it with no idea what you're wanting to get out of it to begin with. And your therapist can work with you and should work with you to help you formalize goals and thoughts about what you want to get out of the therapy sessions. That's something you can actually navigate with the therapist. And I want to encourage you to, if that's not actually brought up by your therapist, and hopefully it is in most therapy sessions, within the first 3 to 4 sessions, I encourage you to talk about that for yourself. What are your goals? Have that conversation. See if you're able to formalize those goals into something that's realistic, achievable, and something that you feel like will give you some indication of if you're making any level of progress or if you're getting something out of these therapy services. Now, another aspect of therapy that gets in the way of you being able to feel like you're getting your needs met or getting your wants met in therapy is that you're not being completely honest with yourself or the therapist. And I'm going to be clear, I get it. You're coming into these therapy sessions, you're meeting with a complete stranger, and they're asking you to open up about your deepest, darkest secrets. Not everybody has the ability to do that. And that's something that may require some time before you build that trust, before you build that openness, before you feel like you're able or capable or want to share that level of detail with someone. And that's to be expected. We have to build up a trust with our therapist. However, if we never feel like we can build that trust, and if we're always giving half truths, if we're not being clear about all of the details of the situation, know that your guidance and your therapy services, or the skills that are going to be discussed, or the things that are going to be talked about, or the goals and the treatment options are going to be based off of the information you give. Sometimes I have clients come in the office and tell me, you're the doctor, you should know. And I'm like, I'm going to need some information from you, because although I understand human behavior, I don't know your story. And I need to know your story in order for me to understand how I can better help or assist you in those moments. And I like to say a lot, I'm a psychologist, not a psychic. I can't read your mind. I can't read the tea leaves. I don't know the tarot cards of what your past life experiences were. So I'm going to have to know some information about what has happened and what is actually happening with you in this moment in order for me to give you any type of guidance, goals, or treatment in a way that's going to be helpful or even make any level of improvement in your life. Lastly, a thing that could be getting in the way is that you and your therapist just aren't a match. Therapy, again, like I just stated, is a very intimate process. You are sharing very deep information with someone that's a one-sided relationship, a one-sided conversation in most cases. There are some times that therapists share, but these are not our sessions. So most of the time we don't share a lot about ourselves. So these are one-sided, focused on all of your personal information. And that puts you in a very vulnerable position. So because it does, when there is not a match between you and your therapist, you may not be willing to give them that more vulnerable information. You may not be willing to allow them to see certain sides of you that will be helpful for them to see therapy in order for them to better help you in these situations. So if you and your therapist aren't a match, maybe you're looking for someone who's more focused on support and validation as opposed to challenging you or getting to push you past your comfort zone, or vice versa. You're going into therapy looking for someone who's solution oriented, who's going to challenge you, who's looking for ways to make a change or make some significant changes in your life in maybe a shorter period of time, instead of someone who's going to validate your experiences, validate your emotions, but not really offer any challenges or solutions in some cases. Then you and your therapist may not be an adequate match. And then in those therapy sessions, you may not be getting your needs met. So these are just a few ways that you may not be getting what you need and want out of therapy. Now, if neither of these are in line with what are some of the things that are getting in your way, I want you to ask yourself these questions to figure out why therapy isn't working for you in this moment, to figure out ways to make therapy work for you. So one question you may want to ask yourself is, what do I feel like is not working about therapy? Is it me? Is it the therapist? Is it the solutions or the ideas? Is it the treatment? Is it the options that were given to me? Is it the fact that we haven't stated a goal? What's not working? If I figure out what's not working, then I can maybe identify what changes need to be made. And I can discuss that with my therapist if need be. You may also want to ask yourself, have I made any progress or noticed any improvements in the areas of my life that I sought therapy to improve? If I made progress, even small progress is progress, then I might want to continue in this process to see where it goes. If I am noticing improvements in these areas in my life, then there are some things that are working that maybe I need to rework my goal. Maybe I now have a new goal for therapy. Maybe there are other areas in my life that I need to focus on that we're not focusing on in this moment, because our area of focus is based off the goals I initially came into therapy for. Another question you may want to ask yourself is, what could change to make this therapy work for me? What has to change? Does it need to be the therapist? Does it need to be my effort? Does it need to be the treatment? Does it need to be the goal? What needs to change? What can change? What change could happen that could give me an indication that this is working for me? And the ultimate question that you can ask yourself is, how do I even know if this therapy is working for me? What indicators in my life, in myself, in my thoughts, in my emotions, in my situation that lets me know that I'm getting what I need out of this therapy, or that this therapy is working for me? So those are just some questions to ask yourself. And what I hope you take away from this video is, there are a lot of things that we have control over when it comes to therapy, to understand what's working for us and what's not working for us. And sometimes we have to take a step back to kind of analyze what's actually happening in these therapy sessions that's making it less effective for us. Therapy is something that's meant to improve on your overall life experiences, to help you navigate changes, to help you navigate difficult times. If you're getting that, then the therapy is effective. If you're not getting that, start to ask yourself those questions. Start to think about the things that I've outlined today that may be getting in the way of having this therapy work for you. Maybe your expectations are not matching the efforts that are being put in by yourself or by the therapist. Maybe there is not a clearly stated goal for yourself in this therapy. Maybe you're not being fully honest with the therapist or with yourself about what's happening in your situation, or you're not giving all of the information. And maybe you're not being so honest with your therapist because you and your therapist are not really a good match for one another. Start to see if those are the things that are getting in the way of you getting what you need out of this therapy and this therapy working for you. And if those aren't, then ask yourself those questions of what needs to change? What isn't working? Is there any progress? Those set of questions that I asked towards the end of this video, to see why isn't therapy working for me? Because in this day, in this time where there is so much stress, there are so many individuals feeling overwhelmed. There are so many individuals that feel like their level of stress is at an all-time high. There are so many things happening in the world around us that makes us feel so uncertain. So knowing that at least when clients come to see me, that they're getting what they need, and if they're not, they're willing to have that conversation with me, and knowing that others out there are able to ask themselves the question of, why isn't this therapy working for me? And if it's not working for me, what's getting in the way of it working? Being able to have that space and understand understand and know what I need to look for, know what questions I might need to ask myself, as well as my therapist, is the goal of this video. And I hope you take that from this video today. As always, I hope you've taken something from this video that has been helpful, that has been insightful, that gives you some insight into thinking about what works for you in therapy and what is not working for you in therapy. As always, feel free to jot down any thoughts, questions, or comments you have below. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I'll be seeing you again very soon. Thank you.